So speaking of perfect seamless transition right here, Blake, coming, Walker Buehler returning to Major League Baseball, a Major League mound for the first time. I couldn't believe this number when I found it. June 10th, 2022. It is May 5th, 2024. We're almost 2 full years removed from the last time that Walker Buehler took a Major League mound. He's starting against the Marlins. Give me your thoughts. Where are you at with Buehler heading into his 2024 debut?
I still have concerns and the questions that I've had throughout the entire process. I definitely think it's been concerning. It's taken him so long to get back because there's expectations he would be back to start this year, and there's maybe more so hope that he could be back at the end of last year. And it just seemed like it kept getting pushed back. And then there's a few times Roberts said, well, if his rehab start goes well, then he might join us on the next start. And that ended up being 2 or 3 times there. So it's been a very up and down road for Buehler with maybe a lot more valleys there. Just I have my concerns still. I don't think the stuff is where it once was, and he's going to have to be more of a pitcher than the guy who is able to blow everyone away and just kind of dominate throughout games. My high upside hope is that he can be like a number 3 starter for the team, and my downside is he's like a 4 or 5 ERA guy. So that's just where my expectations are. Dave Roberts said it's important to temper those expectations with Buehler because not even just like all the other factors, it's been so long since he hasn't pitched. You never know what you're going to get with the guy, and there's always going to be lingering questions until he answers them of what his actual talent level is. But I think for fans, it'll be good to see Buehler back. He's been a very important part of the rotation and the team for the last 6 years or something like that. So it's exciting to see him coming back, but I'm not totally sold on him being a very effective pitcher at this point.
Yeah, I mean, my view on Buehler is the same on many of these issues, which is please, 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 and I know nobody's going to listen to me. These people, the people that are watching this video will listen because they're reasonable people. Please do not overreact to anything he does against the Marlins. Heck, please don't overreact to anything he does in his first, 2 or even 3 starts. Give this guy a month to get his legs under him. He has not pitched in a major league game in 2 years. And to Blake's point, a lot has changed in Major League Baseball in the last couple of years. We know the sticky stuff and how that impacted some of his numbers. He was effective at times. He was not effective. How much of that was the injury that he was hiding? How much of that was just a diminishing sort of ability? We've seen the velocity in spring training. There are so many pieces of this and question marks that I don't think they're all going to be answered in game number 1 is my point. The good news for Buehler, he's pitching against the Marlins at home. The Marlins are terrible. They're 25th in runs scored. They just traded away one of their best offensive players, if not their best offensive players. In their last 10 games, they went 4-6. You might think that's not terrible, Jeff. You just said this team was terrible. They went 4-6 against the Nationals, Rockies, and A's, folks. The Nationals, Rockies, and A's. If you don't have a winning record against the Nationals, Rockies, and A's, that tells you everything you need to know about the Marlins. And that was after getting swept by the Braves, by the way. So they're 4-9 in their last 13. It's a nice landing spot for Buehler. Of course, the rehab assignment, though, how much do you read into the rehab assignment, Blake? I think there's the optimistic view, which is I care about rehab assignment numbers as much as I care about spring training numbers, which is not at all. The pessimistic view is, yeah, sure, spring training, but velocity is what it is, and spin rate is what it is. And Buehler's on the record saying he thinks the adrenaline of a major league game being back in Dodger Stadium is going to amp him up a little bit. People know how emotional he gets, so maybe the velocity ticks up. But even his last outing, his best outing was 5 innings, 7 hits, 1 earned, no walks, 5 strikeouts, which in a inflated offensive league like the PCL, that's not terrible, but 7 hits in 5 innings also isn't what you're fired up about, Walker Buehler in AAA. So what do you make of the rehab assignment? Do you throw it all out? Do you take some of it with a grain of salt? Or is it that's the truth? We've revealed who Walker Buehler is going to be.
Well, real quick first, it was the Marlins that lost 20-6 to the A's, right? A day or 2 ago.
They got smoked. I don't remember what the final score was. I think they were down 12-0 at one point.
Yeah, I think the A's ended up getting to 20 in that game. But regarding Buehler and the numbers to take away, for me, I think you're more so looking at the stuff in a rehab assignment, like the velocity, the spin rate, the movement on pitches, the command. I don't care about results a whole lot there because like we've said before, pitching in AAA there is like throwing every game at Coors Field. It's a very hitter-friendly league, and there's going to be a lot of randomness to it there. But with Buehler, it's more just about the stuff, and I have concerns that his spin rate is down a good amount. He's had a lot of trouble with his command throughout it, which it's fair given how long he's been out. I know he has to kind of get back on track and find his rhythm and mechanics and timing and all that, and it's going to take work, but it's still concerning, I think, from that sense. Like, the stuff just hasn't been ideal for what you want to see, and Dave Roberts kind of dodged that question about it and just said, like, we expect him to be competitive, and a very
like where he's at, I believe is the last quote we got.
Yeah, just stuff like that where it's kind of dodging the question about stuff. Like, he never specifically said, yeah, like he looks back. Like we heard about with Treinen today, they're saying the reports from his rehab assignment were that he looks totally back, but we haven't heard that with Walker Buehler, so that's a little concerning to me. They're going to keep saying like they have all the confidence in him and everything, but like I said, we have to actually see it on the mound, see if the adrenaline can actually help him, and go from there. So I wouldn't put too much stock in the rehab assignment, like stat wise, but I guess he did have that same ERA in the minors that I expected him to have in the majors. So let's just pretend that it totally correlates and I'm right.
Yeah, and Treinen, by the way, had a 10.38 ERA on his rehab assignment in AAA, and a lot of that was his first 3 outings were pretty terrible, and then his last 3 outings were all scoreless appearances, and so like there was a trajectory there, which if you squint hard enough, the Buehler trajectory maybe is similar, but I think it goes to show how much some of that means versus not. I mean, Treinen looked pretty freaking nasty in his first appearance back. And so we'll see. I think Blake and I are in agreement. We're not going to overreact. I do think velocity and stuff is the type of thing that like that we will have an opinion on starting tomorrow. But I think the thing you said earlier, and I keep referencing this Kershaw book, but it's what made me think of it. Like Kershaw had to reinvent himself as a guy who pitched rather than a guy who just had the best stuff, who could just overpower people with an elite fastball. And Kershaw's stuff was always really, really good, but he became far more of a pitcher as the career went on. And I think that's the question with Buehler. And I don't think people think of Buehler as a pitcher necessarily because they think of the guy who never needed to be. He could throw 99 or 100 with that electric fastball and then a nasty breaking ball, and that was it. And so can he develop into a guy who can still be successful with a 94-mile-an-hour fastball? That kind of thing, I think, is the ultimate question that we have with Buehler.
Yeah, and then I think one more kind of key point that hasn't been talked about a whole lot is Buehler's coming back and dealing with the pitch clock now too, which is something he didn't have before. And that seemed to have an effect on some pitchers, like Alex Vesia specifically struggled a lot adapting to that, and he seemed to turn it around a little more now, but Buehler's going to have to adjust to that. He's been dealing with it a bit in AAA, but it's not the same as pitching at the major league level where you're trying to hype yourself up to throw each and every pitch, and there's added significance on it. So I think it'll be interesting to see how he deals with that and if it has any effect on him at all.
Hey, he's used to the automated balls and strikes system at this point. Like he was complaining about that because he showed up to one of his starts and didn't realize that it was like the week they were using the challenge system, or I forget what the exact story is, but I think it's a great point. When I say things have changed a lot in the last 2 years, that's one of them. And I think Vesia is a great comp because from a demeanor on the mound, that's probably the guy who's most similar to Buehler from an emotion, energy perspective. And so hopefully that's not something that causes problems, but it's very possible that it is. Hey, folks.